You know, doctors give really good advice. His doctors, he would think he had a heart complaint. He didn't die of alcohol. I'm pretty sure that other people claimed he did, but he had sort of a heart valve problem. But we think that his doctor advised him to take daily dips in the Solway Firth as a cure. Well, I think that was more a kill or cure.
Well, he could have gone into the river at Dumfries, Alex, and it's beautiful in the middle of Dumfries there by the river.
Is it Nith? Is it the river Nith? I can't try to remember.
I think it is.
Yeah. Anyway, away from mother country, Scots often become even more patriotic. And I only bought this kilt when I came to England. And I've mentioned about Greenock being the first Burns supper in 1801. The tradition has become global. After death, it was after death he really became legendary or immortal, but during his life, his young life, he did become quite famous within Scotland. I mean, nowadays, of course, things go viral through YouTube, Facebook and Twitter and television news and all the ways that you can hear about a personality. Well, as much as news could travel, he had become famous. And this actually is not an original copy. This is called the Burns Complete Poetical Works, the Kilmarnock edition. The Kilmarnock edition is very famous in Burns history. This was the first published version. So when people refer to the Kilmarnock edition, this is the original compilation of Burns's work. You know, so I mean, at the age of 37, I mean, it's just small print. This guy had produced so much stuff. His father was a farmer. Became a farmer. He worked as a market gardener, and he was one of 7 children. He was the eldest of 7 children, and his father worked not only as a market gardener but also a gardener to the provost of Ayr. Now, do you know what a provost is? What's the equivalent of provost?
Provost.
Mayor. That's what, when I was in Paisley, we referred to the provost, not the mayor. Talking of mayors, Boris Johnson visited a London hospital. Towards the end of the visit, he was shown into a ward with some bandaged people. Greets the first patient, and the chap replies, "Therefore, your honest sons of face, great chieftain o'er the pug and race." Boris, you know, with his blonde hair all over the place, very confused, goes to the next patient and greets him, and the patient replies, "Some he meet and cannot eat, and some would eat that wanted." Totally confused, he looked at the third man, who started to say, "Wee sleekit coorin timorous beastie." Boris turns to the doctor and said, "Is this the mental ward?" "No," the doctor replies, "it's the Burns unit."
Oh, very good.
I like that one. I've got another good one later adapt this. The family moved to a farm in 1765. The soil was poor, but I think the one thing to understand about Burns is that he was a man of the soil, and when you read his poems about, you know, To a Mouse, and, you know, there's a very earthy feel to a lot of his songs and poems. And he worked very hard with his brother Gilbert. They were the 2 oldest, and their father needed them, you know, to work. But their father was far-seeing, and he made sure they went and got a primary school education, and they stayed educated till the age of 13, and then after that they were self-taught. So, you know, when you think nowadays how lucky our, you know, children are and how lucky we were. I mean, when I started school, I mean, a lot of people left when they were 15 and went into, you know, what if they were fortunate enough a good apprenticeship, but, you know, in some cases, you know, they didn't get the opportunity for further education. But it's so much different now. Anyway, they moved a couple of times to different farms, and by this time Burns and his brother Gilbert were running the farm themselves. Burns started to attend a dancing class which his father regarded as a satanic act, and really the relationship between Burns and his father broke down at that stage. He also, another thing he started to do was enjoy alcohol at that time. I'm not sure what he actually drank. I guess it was probably whiskey. The following was seen in a outside, this is true, on a poster outside a kirk, which is a Scottish word for church, in Arbroath, which you may know in the East Coast. And the poster said, you've probably seen this one, drink is your enemy. And there was another poster that somebody put up next to it which said, love your enemy. It was, the children heard many folk songs from their mother and countless stories from an elderly relative about witches, warlocks and fairies. I can remember actually, this is true, when David was about 8 years old, and it was Halloween night. Now the famous Burns poem for Halloween night is the Tam O'Shanter, where the two drunks fall asleep in a graveyard and wake up imagining all sorts of things, you know, about witches and, you know, and it's a wonderful, wonderful poem. But I read this to David and frightened the life out of him. The mother was folksy and told them, you know, folk stuff, but the father counterbalanced this with religious zealotry, and he composed a manual of religious belief. This is the father, written with questions that a child would put to an adult about religion. So the two older boys, when they farmed alongside their father, he would talk to them in an adult way, like, you know, and that was probably somewhere that Rabbi Burns got his deep thinking aspect, because as a young or a teenager he was used to this sort of conversation with his father. At the age of 14, when the hormones started to go, he was working beside the farm girl Nell, and he's written a poem, his first poem I think, "A bonny lass, I will confess, is pleasant to the ee, but without some better qualities, she's no a lass for me." He wrote in a mainly lowland Scots tongue, and he did this, talking of independence, when a wave of Anglicisation was overwhelming Scotland, and this became tidal after the crushing of the Jacobite rebellion at Culloden in April 1746. Has anybody been to Culloden, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
You've been on the
Yes,
battlefield.
yeah.
It was quite amazing
It
where they
is.
all took positions and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful site to visit. All right, we've got another joke. Are you all right for another joke, Bob? The bagpipe was declared as an instrument of war. This is after the Jacobite rebellion was crushed. So imagine the bagpipe being declared an instrument of war. But I suppose in the Scots regiments, when they went into battle, they went in behind the pipe. McTavish was a Scotch farmer visiting London. This is a daft joke. This, for the first time, and staying in a hotel. However, he didn't feel that the natives were very friendly. He said at 4 o'clock every morning, he told his friend, they hammered on my bedroom door, on the walls, and even on the floor and the ceiling. Oh, they hammered, sometimes so loud that I could hardly hear myself playing the bagpipes. The tartan was outlawed in 1746, and that ban would endure for 36 long and horrible years. Hundreds were executed, many more transported to the colonies. Rabbi Burns called them evil days, and he wrote of them, they banished him beyond the sea, but ere the bud was on the tree, adown my cheeks the pearls ran, embracing my John Highlandman. Wonderful way with words. 4 characteristics stand out. I'm going to do this fairly quickly. His fierce love of his native land. So I guess he would have been in the yes vote camp. His love of freedom. If ever there was a man who hated tyranny or oppression of any kind, that man was Robert Burns. And the third characteristic was his love of written language. I mean, you just need to look through one of these books to realize how much he enjoyed words, whether it be in letters, epistles, poems or songs. And he wrote with a beauty and a simplicity that many people say has never been surpassed. We've heard the grace, and in fact somebody's commented that in that some he meet and can't eat, some would eat that want it, that's poverty. Health is the some he meet and cannot eat, that's health. Some would eat that want it, that's poverty. We he meet and we can eat and say the Lord we thank it, that's religion. So in that 25 words you've got he's actually referring to health, poverty and religion. For somebody who can do that in 25 words, it's really... and we've heard the song, the Red Red Rose, and there's another one, A Fond Kiss, and then we sever, A Farewell, Alas Forever. And the theme in the Red Red Rose is again about almost unrequited love. He wasn't with the woman, and this refers to one of his... She really was a mistress. It was more of a sort of infatuation of a wealthy woman from Edinburgh who went to join her husband in the West Indies. He was probably some plantation owner or something like that. And it was the parting that often provoked some of his best love poetry. He did get married actually to somebody called Jean Armour, a lady from Paisley, my hometown. So. Yes, I mean, Red Red Rose, the words that we heard there, till Odysseys gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun, and I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. The fourth characteristic was the way he embraced everyday life and relationship. He was a people's poet. He'd been a farmer, he was a member of the Turnbull Bachelors Club. It's like a sort of round table in some ways, or like our club this morning, apart from one exception. But he was used to being in the company of gentlemen and having conversation. But he was also enjoyed the company of women as well. And I don't know why I put here that he might have been an energy saver in today's world. I'm not quite sure. Oh yes. Did you ever hear the one about the thoughtful Scotsman? This is probably true rather than it is a joke. Who was heading out to the pub, the thoughtful Scotsman heading out to the pub, and he turned to his wee wife before leaving and said, "Jackie, put your hat and coat on, lassie." And she went, "Oh, here, that's nice, are you taking me to the pub with you?" "No, just switching the central heating off while I'm out." Let's see, welcome.
I'll through that one again.
Actually, how are we doing for time? One of the best jokes is not in this, but it's quite a quick one. They ended up in Dumfries, and the famous tavern where he allegedly went for some drink was called the Globe Tavern, and there is a Globe Tavern in Dumfries, and they have. And anyway, the landlord, there was a landlord of the Globe Tavern, and we're going back to the days when the licensing laws were a bit different. And he was called sort of, let's say, Dougal MacDonald was the landlord of the Globe Tavern, and he had a cat called, I think it was a typical cat. We've got Smudge. We've got Twiggy. He had a cat, and the cat sadly became quite ill and died, and Dougal was very attached to Twiggy, really was attached, so he thought that he would have to keep a part of Twiggy to remind him. So what did he do? He cut off her tail and buried her, and her soul went up to heaven. And when she got there, St. Peter said, "Twiggy, I'm sorry, but I can't let you in because you're not whole. You will have to go back down and get your tail back." So in the middle of the night, Dougal was sleeping, he could hear this scratching on the door outside. He said to his wife, "There's somebody out there." So anyway, we went down, and Twiggy was there scratching away, minus her tail. And she said, they're not letting me in because I've not got my tail. Oh, he said, "Twiggy, I'm really sorry, but we don't retail spirits after 9:30. Anyway, what can I say? One word can sum him up: passion. It was with passion that he would stand up for his beliefs. It was a passion that burns. It was with passion that he displayed a defiant spirit, evidenced in his young adulthood, apparently with his long hair in a knot. He was a man of passion for his fellow man, and could write this message of friendship, fellowship and love, a message relevant and vibrant today, and it's from the famous poem, A Man's a Man for all that. It's coming yet for all that and all that, that man to man the world o'er shall brothers be, for all that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Excellent.